it's fair to say that Joe's got a thing or two to say about the bill that passed the House and the damage that it could do to people all across Wisconsin. Joe Zepecki, good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing? Good to see your face. We missed you last week.
Well, thank you. It was great to get away. It is really great to be back. It's nice to have the sun out again. And we saw the note this morning that Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock is going to be the keynote speaker at the state Democratic convention next month in Wisconsin Dells. Good get.
Oh, tremendous get. One of the most compelling and dynamic leaders within our party. You don't have to be religious to know that when you are listening to Rev Warnock, you are going to church. And so anybody who is not already signed up to attend the Wisconsin State Convention for the Democratic Party in the Wisconsin Dells on June 14th and 15th, don't miss out. You can still get your tickets and you can still get a little bit of preaching in your soul. It'll be good for all of us.
And I don't doubt he's going to have some things to say about where they are in the federal budget process, which I hasten to add is far from a done deal. It now goes to the Senate, where Republicans there are not necessarily in alignment with Republicans in the House. But regardless, Joe, the final product probably isn't going to be great for a lot of folks in Wisconsin. But let's start with what we know, and that's what passed the House early this morning. And just how bad could this thing be?
I want to start by quoting the distinguished gentleman from, where is Tom Massey from? Kentucky? Thomas Massey last night on the floor said the following about this monstrosity. Quote, "We are not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. We are putting coal in the boiler and setting a course for the iceberg. If something is beautiful, you don't do it after midnight." End quote. And so that was one of the two Republicans who voted against this. There were other Republicans who took what is sure to go down in the annals of this country's history as profile and courage moments where they voted present, which made it a 215 to 214 vote, which means that every single Republican member of Congress was the deciding vote for legislation that will make health care more expensive, make your energy bill more expensive, explode the debt, make it harder for people with low incomes to feed their families, all so Elon Musk can get another tax cut. And that is, you can't argue with any of that. And Republicans know it. And so I will stop pounding on them and congratulate Hakeem Jeffries on becoming the first African American in history to serve as Speaker of the House. Because there is a reckoning coming in this country next fall, and that is that Republicans are going to be wiped out. Derek Van Orden, Brian Stile, heck, Fitzgerald and Grothman are all on notice because they passed the deciding vote for this monstrosity of a bill.
It seems, though, as I look at the statement that just came down from Derek Van Orden, that there's still this feeling like the only people they work for are the people who voted for Donald Trump. The Van Orden statement says, "This bill takes great strides in fulfilling the mandate that was given to President Trump by 77 million Americans. Without this bill, Wisconsinites would have seen a 25% tax hike. As the Democrats spend time fear-mongering with lies that this bill will cut benefits, Republicans got the job done by delivering tax savings and benefit protections for the American people." Near as I can tell, Joe, the only fact in that entire statement was that President Trump did get 77 million votes.
There was one other fact. Derek Van Orden is a member of Congress for now. I'm sure it said, said Representative Derek Van Orden. And we can come back to DVO in a second, but he's lying. He's lying, and lying. He said he would not vote to cut food stamps. He said he would not vote to cut Medicaid. CBO scores, that's the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, have laid out the facts that millions of Americans will lose health care, that this bill is an incredible redistribution of income in this country, where those at the bottom will be hit the hardest and have a harder time getting by, and those at the very top, the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezos of the world, will get extraordinary benefits. So I guess my question is, what the hell is populist about any of that? About redistributing wealth from the working poor, from working families, from people working their tail off to get into the middle class, just so Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg can buy, I don't know, another Hawaiian island, another mega yacht. This is madness. And it is not what people who voted for Donald Trump voted for. Maybe some of them, maybe those uber rich. But I'm here to tell you, man, if this thing becomes law, which is not a guarantee because we've got the Senate to go, and then we've probably got a conference committee between the Senate and the House if the Senate doesn't pass exactly the same version. But if this
Looks like we've lost Joe.
It looks like we did. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't me here, but it looks like we may have lost Joe's signal here for a bit. So we'll look to have him reestablish that. And in fact, what I'm going to do here quick is just there we go. That way, I'm going to hit a button so he knows to click another button and come back in. So our apologies for that. Thank you, Sam, for updating where the problem was. That you're still hearing me, you're still seeing me. I haven't been lifted out of my chair here in Lake Wissota. So hopefully we'll catch up with Joe again. But again, the point that I was about to make to Joe, and you're going to hear this from me a lot, is, and I think we've got Joe back now after a little signal interruption here, Joe, but the point you were getting to and that I was going to follow up with is we're going to hammer this point a lot about how this isn't the spending cuts aren't actually any kind of savings because they go to tax cuts, because we're going to take nothing for granted. All throughout 2024, I said, people should know that Trump killed that immigration bill just so he could campaign on the issue, and yet it worked for him. Even though he killed the bill, he campaigned on the issue and he won on it. So how do Democrats avoid making that mistake again, where we point out the obvious, that this isn't going to you, it's going to millionaires and billionaires, and yet somehow I think everybody fears that Republicans are just going to get away with what Derek Van Orden just said, that somehow this is about cost savings when it's anything but.
Have you been watching Andor?
I have not.
Oh my God, it's the greatest thing on TV you've seen in quite some time, whether or not you're a Star Wars fan. But I want to share something remarkable. This is of course a spy thriller just before Luke Skywalker saves the galaxy. But Andor is this interregnum, and there's a speech from Mon Mothma, who is one of the leaders of the Rebel Alliance. And so for the first time in the last couple of weeks, people saw her speech to the Galactic Senate. And I want you to listen to this quote and tell me if any of it sounds familiar. The distance between what is said and what is known to be true has become an abyss. Of all the things at risk, the loss of an objective reality is perhaps the most dangerous. The death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. When truth leaves us, when we let it slip away, when it is ripped from our hands, we become vulnerable to the appetite of whatever monster screams the loudest.
Well, if that doesn't describe what you see on C-SPAN every day, I don't know what does.
Donald Trump is the monster who is screaming the loudest.
Yeah.
And he's got his little lackeys like Derek Van Orden, who are lying to your face, whether they know it or not. This bill cuts Medicaid, makes it harder for people who are working their tail off to provide for their family and maybe a parent, an aging parent in a nursing home, or maybe a kid with special needs. There's a woman who appeared with Senator Baldwin yesterday to talk about this. She and her husband both work full-time. They have health insurance through their employer. They are living the American dream. And their son was born with special needs. They didn't know it until he was born. And if they did not have Medicaid as a supplemental, one of them would have to leave the workforce and be the full-time caregiver for their 9-year-old. On what planet is making it harder for those parents to recertify their child's permanent special needs good public policy? There's no explanation for why they should have to go twice a year instead of once a year, when there is no growing out of the challenges that this young man faces.
No.
But and so when we talk about CBO saying between 10 and 20 million Americans could lose access to health care, that's not rooting out fraud, waste, and abuse. That's making your and my health care cost more. That is making it harder for rural hospitals to stay open so that people, if they're injured in an accident, either, on the farm or driving, on the highway, they're now at greater risk of dying because they can't get to a hospital that's actually open and staffed. And that is going to be the cost of this.
I got just over a minute before we have to take a break here, so I have to ask you where you are in the campaign for state Democratic Party chair. We had all the conventional or congressional district conventions. What you up to these days?
Working my tail off, running around like a head with its chicken cut off. I'll be up north next week. Going up to Waushara later today. Was in Ozaukee County last night. It's going great because people know that all is not well with the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. People know that, as Bernie Sanders says, change never comes from the top down. And while we certainly are surprised that Ben Wickler went back on his word and commitment to stay out of this race, which no one made him do, by the way, he chose to do that on his own, and then a month into it, decided he knows best. And frankly, I think they and I have been a little surprised by the response, which is people going, wait a minute, you said you were going to stay out, and it is the delegates to the convention who should decide this thing. So I'm feeling great picking up support every single day, and if you're going to convention, I'd be honored to earn your support as well.
I think we'll be talking a lot about this a few more times before the state convention next month in Wisconsin Dells as Joe continues to travel around in his campaign for state party chair. And again, we'll talk to William Garcia tomorrow in our 8 o'clock hour about that as well. Joe Zepecki is with us. We've been talking about his run for state party chair. And before we get back to that, I did want to ask you about one development during the week here, and that is appeals court judge Chris Taylor, a former state legislator, announcing that she'll be running for Wisconsin Supreme Court. Most likely, conservative Justice Rebecca Bradley will be running for re-election as well. A lot of folks see that matchup between Rebecca Bradley and Chris Taylor as the best possible. If you're a progressive, you want to see this election. I'm sure a lot of people on the right feel the same way about Chris Taylor. What's your early view on the way the race looks right now?
Well, I'm not sure that Chris Taylor will be the only candidate, but Chris is certainly a proven progressive with a track record. What I want to focus on is telling folks why this matters. I know it seems a little strange that 7 weeks after the last court race, we're at this again, right, with a 45-week campaign. Because we all just heard that after Susan Crawford won, we've locked in the progressive majority on the state court for a while. And we have. And here's why I would ask folks to buckle up and strap in and lock in and get ready to go again. That progressive majority is guaranteed through August of 2028. In November of 2028, there will be a presidential election in Wisconsin. We have seen Republicans try to steal elections before, try to strike at the very heart of our democracy. And if you care about that, if you care about the will of the people being reflected through elections, we need you to saddle up and ride one more time to ensure that progressives control the Wisconsin State Supreme Court through the next presidential election. So buckle up, folks. We got to do this all over again.
And, coming out of the convention next month, whatever the outcome of the chair's race, that will certainly be top of mind for, the next state party chairs, knowing that before even the midterms, before we wonder if Governor Evers is running or isn't running for a third term, that there is this state Supreme Court race that's going to be coming up first. So we got an overall update on your run for chair, about Ben Wickler deciding to make an endorsement in the race. You've been making these tours around the state, and I've asked you all three of you, the same kind of, don't let yourself be boxed in question. Devin Remiker as the party insider or the Madison person. And like he said yesterday, he's actually from the La Crosse area and he's worked around the state. I'm sure William Garcia tomorrow will say, don't just think of me as the outstate candidate from La Crosse. I've done, a whole lot and know a lot about the party. So likewise, we have to ask the question again. Joe Zepecki's the guy in Milwaukee. He's from outside the party. He's done this work as a strategist consultant. How do you as well break out of that pigeonholed box and say, hey, look, I'm the full product over here?
Well, nobody ever succeeds when they try to put me in a box.
Okay, baby. Nobody's putting you in a corner either,
right.
Let me tell you.
That's right. No, listen, I think our differences as candidates are most clearly visible when you look at the totality of our experience. There's only one candidate out of the three of us who has worked in other states, and that's me. I've worked on the ground in places like Nebraska and Iowa and Nevada. There's only one candidate who has worked nationally, in the headquarters of a federal agency managing 30 staff, 26 of whom are career federal civil servants, and then across 68 district offices around the country at the U.S. Small Business Administration for President Barack Obama. Devin and William are great Democrats and good friends, and their experience is not equivalent in terms of what I have done and the experience that I will bring to bear on this. And so that's the case I'm making to delegates, is that, talk is cheap and easy, and what actually matters is making change. Making change is really hard. And listen, if folks think that everything is A-okay and hunky-dory within the Democratic Party, there's a candidate in this race who is, whose message is stay the course and who comes from inside the party. I don't think that is how Democrats are feeling. And if I thought that the right approach to curing what ails our party was to have the same people in the same positions of leadership, in the same rooms, I wouldn't be doing this, right? Because if that's what the appetite for Democrats was, then I would have said, okay, then those candidates, that candidate's in the race. But I don't think that's what people want, and that's what I'm continuing to hear around the state.
Well, and that's where I don't mean to take it in a negative direction, but I'm going to wrap up by asking this. When you talk to people, what, among party members, what is their top fear or worry or concern about switching chairs, and what do you tell them? What are their concerns?
Well, I don't think there is any concern, right? I mean, everyone is worried about the ability to sustain the fundraising challenge, but none of us know whether we'll be able to raise money like Ben Wickler until we're in the chair. But what people are asking is, and concerned about, is a top-down approach, a one-size approach, fits all, that doesn't work for county parties, right? And so that is a real frustration among the grassroots of our party, and real challenges with how it comes to communicating our messages and our values, right? Our brand is busted. The communications aren't landing. People know that we need to be better and do better. And the more I talk about the ways in which we can do that, the more support I'm getting. And that's the case that I'm going to continue to make, which is we have to make changes. Listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's things within the party that are going well and going strong, but there's also a ton of work to do. We've lost 2 out of the last 3 presidential elections. Ron Johnson is still our United States Senator. So we've got work to do. And if you're listening to this and you agree with me, come on board. We'd love to have your support.
Joe Zepecki, thanks as always. Safe travels to you. Talk again soon.
Thanks, Pat.